And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Monday, April 7th, 2025. And to set things up on this Monday as they will evolve Tuesday into Wednesday, in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, this is what steers the surface weather system. We have an upper level low sitting here over the western Gulf, North Pacific, and another area up here, Chukchi Sea, northwest coast. These two features are going to be prevalent throughout the week. The main one, though, being the broad circulation that's causing impulses of energy to rotate back to the north and west with moisture. That's why areas along the Gulf Coast into south central will see some periods of rain and snow mixed, or even some accumulating snow all the way into the Anchorage Bowl. As of this Monday morning, about an inch of snow has fallen in Anchorage, and another bout could be coming through at some point Tuesday into Wednesday. And we have areas of IFR Tuesday morning across much of the Gulf Coast in through the southern Panhandle, outer areas, Sitka, on up through Prince William Sound. We also have IFR conditions along the Alcan border, and then out here at Cape Newingham, the Bristol Bay, and back toward Kuskokwim Bay, because there is a feature right now that's going to cross Nunavik Island. A winter weather advisory is in effect until 7 p.m. this Monday evening for snow showers and some blowing snow, and that feature will cross the Alaska Peninsula, far eastern Aleutians later tonight and especially on Tuesday morning, and then that system just rotates through, gets absorbed into this broader circulation, and that's what will enhance some energy for the midweek period. And then we're going to have another pocket of cold air come down out of the Chukchi Sea, eastern Russia on Friday morning and quickly drop south-southeastward, and that'll work its way across eastern central Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula by Saturday, reinforcing cold temperatures and some snow showers. But in the meantime, into Tuesday afternoon, we still have areas of IFR, especially along the intercoastal mountains here in the inner channels of the Panhandle up through White, Chilkoot Pass, along the Gulf Coast as we get out here, Yakutat on over toward Prince William Sound. Also pocket of IFR conditions, central Yukon Valley between the Alaska Range and the Brooks Range. And then we also have IFR conditions off the Yukon Delta coast back towards St. Lawrence Island here for Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday, pockets of IFR along the Alaska Range, along the Gulf Coast, extending into the intercoastal mountains of the Panhandle. Pockets out here over the Bering Sea, extending into St. Paul. And then by Wednesday afternoon, still IFR conditions here along the northern, northeastern Gulf Coast from the far eastern Kenai, surrounding areas of Prince William Sound through Yakutat Bay and up toward Chilkoot and White, and then broader areas of MVFR in the Gulf along areas of the Alaska Range, Brooks Range, North Slope, and Arctic Coast, all the way down much of the West Coast and out toward the Aleutians. Now, past conditions on Tuesday are looking generally MVFR at Anaktuvik Pass. There could be a very brief period of VFR early in the day, but it wouldn't last long. Adigan Pass, generally MVFR throughout Tuesday with IFR conditions as you fly further south of the south entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill along the west arm of the Alaska Range, starting out VFR, but then becoming MVFR on Tuesday. Same thing, Rainy Pass, starting VFR Tuesday morning, becoming MVFR. Windy Pass, VFR, also MVFR. And MVFR conditions should generally hold around the area of Isabel Pass and to the west there before you get to Windy Pass. And then out in the far east of the Alaska Range, Mentasta Pass is looking MVFR, becoming VFR. And then dropping down the Copper River Basin, Tanita Pass, IFR early in the day, becoming MVFR. And Portage Pass is kind of stuck in that IFR, especially the eastern half of Portage Pass into Prince William Sound. IFR conditions on Tuesday with MVFR conditions off toward the west and west entrance. Chilkoot and White will likely become IFR on Tuesday as we go through the day. And then looking at the freezing levels at the surface, we have cool temperatures down across much of the Bering Sea. There's a surface freezing line is a little at least northward here across the eastern Aleutians. Much of the mainland we find temperatures at or below freezing, and freezing levels aloft are slightly elevated to 2,000 feet over here, the southwest outer Panhandle. You have to go way up north central Canada, some freezing levels above 4,000 and 5,000 feet. So overall, a cooler regime over the mainland, and that's going to carry us up through this whole week into next weekend. And chances of icing will be greatest along areas of the Gulf Coast, northeastern Gulf Coast into the Panhandle above 4,000 and 5,000 feet could be moderate icing. Pockets of moderate icing coming up through the Talkeetna Mountains south of the Alaska Range, and then also near and north of the Yukon River between there and the spine of the Brooks Range above 4,000 feet. And then with that feature dropping southeastward across the Alaska Peninsula, creating those breezy conditions and snow showers. There may be some isolated to considerable moderate areas of icing there above 3,000 feet. Here are the jet stream level winds at 30,000 feet, and we find, just generally speaking, this colder northerly flow occurring across the eastern Bering Sea and along the outer Yukon, Kuskokwim deltas, and then crossing the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, where we have a wind max from Nunavik Island to the far eastern or western tip there of the Alaska Peninsula between 105 and 115 knots. Now, as we bring it down to the mid-level circulation, you can see where that mid-level low, this gyre, this is just allowing a circulation of weaker lows or even some stronger lows and moisture to be pulled back to the north and west here across the Gulf Coast. Meanwhile, the Bering Strait, eastern Russia, we have generally a north-northwest flow bringing down the colder air and maintaining that. Winds in the mid-levels along the eastern Bering, generally around 40 knots, though in excess to near 50 knots as we get south of the Alaska Peninsula. And then we have southwest flow coming up into the Panhandle, 30 to 40 knots. And then 3,000 feet, you can clearly see, here's this surface low circulation. There's actually a few different weak surface low circulations, the most prominent being this one. But occasionally you're going to get these little weak lows with some moisture pull back to the north and west and enhance any showers or areas of precipitation along the Gulf Coast, some of that spreading inland through the intercoastal mountains. And then notice the stronger winds as that system swings through the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula Tuesday. Brisk northerly flow there where winds could be as high as 45 knots, just 3,000 feet above the surface. So that translates to an area where considerable moderate turbulence is likely, especially along areas of the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians, surface to 4,000 feet. And then also along the northeastern Gulf Coast, an area of considerable moderate turbulence expected on Tuesday, surface to 6,000 feet.